I play a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV here and there, but I'm not constantly subscribed. One of the main things I've come to like over time is the combat system, as it's not a style you really see outside of MMOs. Well, mostly. A highlight of Harvestella was the boss fights being practically ripped from 14 fights, even having some of the same debuffs. But mostly the AoEs and having to pick up mechanics on the fly to learn them, when usually as a tank I'd watch a video beforehand. So when I learned about Rabbit and Steel via the interview on RPG site, I was pretty excited to try out a cheaty game that uses the shmup style controls with MMORPG mechanics. It being a roguelike didn't even bother me when it normally does, though every player character being a bunny girl probably helps. Recently the demo has come out on Steam, so I tried a bit on my own, and then did a successful run with my sister, which we did in about 20 minutes. Since it's based on raiding, it allows 4 players online together, as I can't imagine you'd be able to fit any more on the screen with everything that's going on. So, like a shoot 'em up, you're on a 2D screen flying in the air, but you have a mix of range and immediate attacks. With 4 different abilities on a cooldown, there are 5 different classes to choose from, but because it's playable solo, there's no reliance of the classes between each other. So while I picked the Heavy Blade because it had some tank-like abilities, there was nothing that required my abilities specifically, and there is no healing. For the most part they're somewhat similar, but the Assassin has some more positional things to worry about, Heavy Blade gets one more invulnerability option, and the Druid has a dot, which is damage over time. You can also pick colour palettes for your character, so you could all totally be the same class if you wanted. Because it's not role focused, I'll definitely be trying out the other ones, even if I do have a preference. For the most part you're fighting one opponent, no adds, although there is one fight with 2. Playing multiplayer adds to the difficulty because you have to worry about spreading out from time to time while also avoiding all the obstacles, which thankfully the group up and spread out markers are written in plain English instead of needing to learn specific symbols. But then again, if someone dies in multiplayer it doesn't end the whole run, and they can revive over time, so it could also make it a bit easier. The first fights were pretty basic, but in the second area it really showed all the cool ways you can adapt such gameplay in a totally different way. Like the application of a gravity effect either dragging you down or pulling you in towards them. But my favourites were the teleport markers, so you had to remember where it was going to pull you and stay in a favourable place to not get hit by the falling orbs, or when I was bound to a vertical lane and had to not only slowly trickle my way down to avoid getting hit, but before that try and place myself away from a damaging grid pattern. The boss of this demo also required some coordinated memorization as it showed what attacks were going to be dealt, and we had to plan where to go on the screen so we didn't hurt each other. The roguelike elements come into play with your health bar, meaning you can only take a few hits. Getting to treasure chests, which appeared every few fights, and moving between areas did feel a hurdle too, and there's also a shop, where the gold you're rewarded with can be spent on healing, leveling up, items that apply a buff for one fight, or to upgrade one of your 4 abilities, which can change how you'll play. Like my sister played as the Assassin, and with the upgrade she could now attack while being invisible. This also influenced what treasure we picked. If I picked up the poison damage, I'd then want to go for the item that increased how much damage that dealt. The only issue and by I mean my sister noticed, after reading the interview anyway, is that your XP is thought out based on your DPS, shown at the end of each fight, which could negatively impact a run if you aren't efficient enough. Though considering any level above normal adds a time limit to fights, I don't think it'll matter too much. You can earn trinkets, which are these cute cosmetic only items like this fluffy bowl that follows me and looks beat up when I get hurt. So that's what the glam game in this is, deliberately not something with stats. Of course, I did find when playing in multiplayer with the constant spreadouts I couldn't deal quite as much damage as I liked. But I also didn't use an entire ability because I thought 2 uses meant that that was it, not that I could use it twice and then it would go on cooldown. So you'll definitely need to play a little bit to get used to it. I like that it has more of a pick up and play vibe, though we'll see how long runs are in the actual game. Visually, it's a cute cartoon style which suits the one-man team, aside from audio work, and makes everything look really cute, especially when you beat an enemy and they just get punted and dropped through the air. As what's most important is the actual AoEs and such, which are pretty easy to tell, although I did die in my first run as I still wasn't 100% sure if a big dark circle sitting on the enemy was something that could hit me. Obviously, it'll be a bit harder for someone who hasn't played something like Final Fantasy XIV to learn the mechanics and figure out what to do, but for the demo content it's not too much and is a good place to start. I'll link the RPG site interview below so you can learn a bit more about the game, but let me know if you're into raiding or if this approach appeals to you since it won't require a subscription. It's set to release sometime in 2024 on PC. Bye!